April 17th, year of our Lord 2025. It's Thursday, Holy Thursday for Holy Week. So I want to wish everybody a happy Easter, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and all that good stuff, and have a great weekend. But I just want to do a wrap-up video for the week, go over some key things that I thought were interesting. So we'll start with breaking news today. This was just in from Eric Doherty. In the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals just rejected Trump's administration's appeal on halting proceedings in Kilmer Abrego Garcia's case. Judge goes off, accusing Trump of trying to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons. I'm just going to say this because I said it in my other video. It's very simple. Mr. Garcia is a citizen of El Salvador, a known MS-13 individual, identified by both El Salvadoran and U.S. governments, recently pictured and information from the Biden administration being seen with MS-13 members. And he's here illegally. End of story. End of story. He was sent home. They could do whatever they want with him. End of story. And he doesn't have to send him back because that would be extradition. That means we would have to charge him with a crime and then ask for extradition. Or we kidnap him. Okay? This whole case is absurd. The fact that we're wasting so much time on it is insane. Supreme Court will uphold this. There's nothing they can do. And the word facilitate, find me 10 different lawyers, you'll get 10 different answers. So basically, we just got to get him a plane should they release him. But we don't have to get him. We can't get him. They won't let him go. End of story. Move on. Jeez. So I just thought I'd share that ridiculous ruling for you from the Fourth Circuit. But here we go. So this is big economic news in this Trump's tweet this morning, or truth, I should say. The European Central Bank is expected to cut interest rates for the 7th time. They did, by the way. And yet, too late. Jerome Powell of the Fed, who was always too late and wrong, yesterday issued a report which was another and typical complete mess. Oil prices are down. Groceries, even eggs, are down. And the USA is getting rich on tariffs. Too late. Should have lowered interest rates like the ECB long ago, but he should certainly lower them now. Powell's termination cannot come soon enough. One, I agree with that. But you got to understand, the Fed's model, they used outdated jobs models and everything like that. You raise rates to combat inflation when the economy's hot. Okay? The economy was not hot. What happened was through intense regulations, energy restrictions, not just in the U.S., but in Europe and globally, as well as printing money and the massive deficits, both supply and demand, push and pull, inflations hit. They caused prices to go up. And then interest rates had to combat inflation. But that was a Band-Aid. The problem is what caused inflation. And of course, the Democrats don't want to do anything about it. And of course, the Federal Reserve is going to do anything that the Democrats want, particularly Powell. So basically, that's it with Powell. And he's late with rates. Okay, inflation is year over year. Well, it's up, but it's up a normal rate now. And month over month, it's down. Lower the rate so we can get juicing. So right now, people are priced out of houses. People are priced out of cars. Lending is bad. So you need to get some liquidity back in to spark this economy while deregulating, while renegotiating these trade deals, okay, while reindustrializing, while drill baby. All right? So I thought I'd share that truth with you. So staying on the economic front, this is this. Now, what has one of my arguments been? Our GDP is declining in real terms. Boom! Year over year change in real GDP. All right, going back to 1972. Now, keep in mind, that's the year we were taken off the gold standard and basically gave a blank check to the federal government to start printing money. Keep that in mind. And in 1990 is when we really started to uptick deindustrialization and outsourcing our factories and jobs overseas. Okay? And the debt to GDP ratio. Look at that. So you get a steady rise of debt to GDP ratio from 19 all the way up, 80 all the way to 2000, okay? Then you get a steady decline. But look at this. Financial crisis, boom. That's when we picked it up. That's when interest rates went to zero. The government started to spend crazy because borrowing costs for them were really cheap, and that's when our debt started to accelerate. And that's when our real GDP started to decline even more. Then it came down, it hit COVID, got a little rebound, and then we're back on the decline again. Okay? But notice, how correlated they are. They're almost like mirrors. So as we talk on this chart, boom, made in China versus made in America. This is from 1980 till now. And if you look at the chart, I gotta move this up a little bit here. Rises made in China, continues to rise. 1990, we started to outsource, right? Now look at that, how it increased. Percentage of global manufacturing output. Right there. Okay, then there's the decline. It looks like 4 and 5. I guess that's what it is on the chart, right? But look at that. And we declined 17.2%. Now, okay, so from 2000. So we went from 28%, and China went from 5 in 1980 to today they're at 29, and we're at 17.2. Now keep in mind, and this is the argument, China didn't just come and take our factories. We, through our politicians, through Wall Street, through Washington, D.C., okay, because of this inflationary system of fiat currency coming off the gold reserve, giving license to the federal government to just print money, being bailed out by the Federal Reserve, right? They have a $9 trillion or now $8 trillion balance sheet that they just put on their books, okay? Give them the license, okay? That combined they had to increase now the profits. So to increase the profits, they had to drop down labor costs, among other things. Now, regulations don't help either, over-regulations. And I'll agree with that argument to an extent. But this is what happened. It's a perfect formula of progressive, left-wing, central planning globalism. This is not true economic liberty that we got going on right here. Okay? And that's it. And we're this percentage of manufacturing, but we're a percentage of GDP. No, you're not. We're over-financialized. So now we're going to move on to what I'm going to call the crazy man section. This is Nikita Kasab. Now this guy, if you don't know, he's 17 years old. He killed his parents in February. He was arrested. And it was some diabolical plot to kill Trump. I don't know. Insurance proceeds, whatever. But here's the interesting thing. FBI records show he was in contact with Ukrainians discussing how to carry out the attack and frame it as a Russian operation. Hey! Works for the CIA, works for the New York Times. We'll do the same thing here. Everything's Russia, Russia, Russia. He also asked how soon he could flee to Ukraine afterwards. Interesting. Keep in mind, the golf course shooter, his connections to Ukraine and possibly even Azov Battalion. And whether he'd be able to have a normal life there. Yeah, they'll put you in a uniform and throw you on the front at Donetsk. Now that they're conscripting women off the street and 18-year-olds, okay? This man should have been headline news. No mainstream media outlet has touched these public records. No crap. Don't have to be an Einstein to figure that one out. But there you go with this guy. Now the crazy train continues. A retweet from Jack Bezzobi. This guy tweets this article out. When must we kill them? By the way, he's talking about Trump supporters, MAGA people, just so you know. So Nicholas Decker writes, the ultimate source of political power is and always will be violence. Of course. Of course, left-wing governments take over and they consolidate power, whether it's the Nazis, any centralized Mao's, Kuomintang, doesn't matter. That's what they do, and that's why they don't want an armed citizenry. That's what the Democrats on the left will do to us here in the United States. If you think you're exempt, you're wrong. You are wrong, wrong, wrong. And this guy openly admits it, and they will. I remember there was a 70% of Democrats, poll came out in 2022, that they would take want their kids taken away from the parents if they didn't force their kids to get the COVID vaccine. 70% of Democrats, and this was in the state of New York. Believe me, they will kill you. Remember, they don't have faith. The government is their faith. Ideology is their faith. Climatology is their faith. They replace religion with this ideology. Communism and getting rid of traditional values and faith and everything is basically getting rid of all those traditions. Okay, it's anti-nationalism, it's anti-religion, and the government and the ideology becomes the core value. And you're in their way, and you're stopping them on their way to get there. Okay, that's why the faith in institutions, all these things, and they personally benefit from this at the same time. But here they are. Okay, if the present administration should continue on its course, there is no choice but war. I say this out of sorrow. When must we kill them? He's not talking metaphorically. Okay? And it's true. Look at the violence. Look at the violence at Trump's first inauguration in D.C. The BLM riots, 25 people killed, hundreds of police officers wounded, a dozen cops were killed, over 100 federal agents wounded, $25 billion worth of damage. Then you have the riots at Berkeley. You have the Bernie supporters shooting up the, the charity baseball field where Scalise was shot. You have, the guy in Massachusetts who was the old guy with a MAGA hat on was beat up. Then you got the... recently bombing the New Mexico Republican headquarters, the headquarters in that county in New Jersey, this election in North Carolina, just goes on and on and on. You don't hear about it because that's not their narrative. And since they control the corporate media, you have to rely on independent media to even know these things. The average person know them. So that's why a lot of people believe it. They live in a safe suburb. They maybe go to or richest part of a city, and they're isolated. And they trust and rely on these institutional corporate media and narratives, and they think we're the bad guys. They're not. No, this is them. So, crazy train again. A rise in sexual assaults by migrants in a price worth paying to end racism. Okay, again, ideology and justifies the mean. How Machiavellian can you be? Again, in your face, the Atlantic, the elite think tanks of the globalists. Okay, it's okay. I love they use the term quasi-consensual encounters. What's a quasi-sexual encounter? Maybe not, yes, no, it was in, it wasn't in, what? See, they're playing down the words to give you, so you're not as defensive to it, okay, to what they're trying to tell you as the reader. And while you're reading the Atlantic, only an elitist, globalist, piece of shit, progressive scumbag would read it, okay? Encounters between refugees, now they're always refugees, and white Western women may help with assimilation. Yeah, they're going to breed them out because they're raping them. So all the kids will come out, although most of them will get abortions anyway. Harvard academic. What says one Harvard academic? What? We don't need some Hamas stuff to defund these universities. Just defund them. And I'm not going to get into the whole economics of why it's beneficial. But come on. This is what you think? Raping people will help assimilate. No, it will create more. It will create an intolerance, a resistance, and a pissed off electorate. Okay, that may eventually even take matters in their own hands if you don't stop doing this and protect your own citizens. These people are insane. They're justifying violent actions to a political end. This is who they are. And Southern Republicans who are used to Republican rule, like in my state, Tennessee, got to wake up to who these people are. Okay, and really understand. They are violent, communist scumbags who will shoot you. 22. EU shelves idea of sanctions on Russian LNG imports. 17th package coming up by the EU on Russia. And of course, they don't want to give up the possibility of Russian gas. Especially Germany's contracting, France's economy is slowing down, they're deindustrializing. But we'll leave the door open. Their hypocrisy is just as bad as their policies and their ideology. Okay? Unbelievable. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Robert Fico is responding. Mrs. Callas, Kaya Callas, the deputy foreign minister of the EU, warning and threatening are disrespectful, and I am fencing against them. EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs, Kalasaya, cuts the leaders of EU countries before participating in the Victory Day celebrations in Moscow in May. Participation will not be taken lightly. So basically, she's going on because he's the president of Slovakia, he's going to go to May because of the role that they played in defeating the Nazis on the Patriot Day. And he's going. And he's been threatened by the EU like crazy. Of course, you don't like what the globalists do, they punish you, even if you're on your team. He says nothing to do with today. It has to do with the honor of the veterans and the people who lost their lives destroying Nazism. That's it. Okay? And he's standing up for it. To throw that in the mix, here we go. That's Putin, we all know that, but that's him, Vucic, president of Serbia. They did the same thing to Serbia, and they even threatened possible future EU membership if they go to the parade. Matter of fact, they want to have an alternate event in Kiev, okay, with the same people, like the Azov Brigade and Right Sector, who salute the SS Galician SS division that was raised in Western Ukraine, Galicia, the old Austro-Hungarian Empire Republic. Unbelievable. So, moving on, we got a little foreign policy here. If you don't know, that is the Iranian foreign minister arriving in Moscow today. They're having a big to-do going on about they're going to meet, whatever. We know they signed that recent military cooperation agreement and everything like that. So they're meeting there. So while that's going on, Ukraine, foreign minister, defense minister, head of Zelensky's office are meeting with EU officials and Rubio. So all a bunch of warmongering retards, okay, are going to be in a room, except for one man, Witkoff. Okay, Witkoff has been articulate. He's eager to learn, and I've made the argument the reason why Trump is giving him so much power is because he's seen so many things. He personally trusts Witkoff, and unlike his first term, he's not going to be burned. Okay, Witkoff is starting to understand the dynamics of this conflict, that this war was started after the coup in 2014, when Yanukovych left office, and the independence declaration of the Lugansk and Donetsk republics. And even going right up to the military operation, Ukraine was doing antagonistic things by not implementing the Minsk Accords that were passed in 2016 to solve the initial conflict where Ukraine was defeated by the militias of Donetsk and Lugansk with Russian help. And there were certain degrees of autonomy that were in there, and they were never involved. So he's starting to learn that. Okay, so, but I don't like this ratio of Rubio and all these neocons in the European Union pushing on that because they're trying to drive a wedge. Zelensky is clearly between Europe and the United States, okay, on this issue. And they will do anything to keep this war going for a multitude of reasons. So we're going to keep an eye on this over the weekend and see how it goes, along with the whole Iran dynamic going on with the negotiations, which we'll get to in a second. So, about Trump's first term. If you don't know, towards the end of Trump's first term, he ordered the withdrawal of our troops. Milley ignored him. They're there. They went down to a few hundred, and then within like the first couple of weeks of the Biden administration, we got it up to about 2,000 troops by the Conoco oil fields there, okay, where they were exporting oil. That's for another video, but that. So now let's see if they actually follow on this. Breaking, President Donald Trump is withdrawing hundreds of troops from Syria. I would like some more details on that. I got this one right before my video, so I'll keep you posted on that. All right, now, Middle East, breaking. President Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, and Pete Hegseth stepped in to halt an Israeli airstrike on Iranian nuclear sites in favor of negotiations. Holy crap, if this is true, Trump and his cabinet just stopped World War III. It's a great idea, okay? You know, I know we're taught 100% Iran is the boogeyman and everything like that. There are a lot more things playing in there, also involving the relationship with Israel when it comes to Iran. Every year, the public released intelligence community assessment says they're not enriching a bomb. I've been hearing for 25 years they're 6 months from a nuclear weapon. And I've been hearing it also from Israel. And I think there's a lot going on involved with that because of Iran's backing of Hezbollah, the Lebanese, and Hamas. And I think there's a lot of influence going on with that. Iran's terrorist groups do not go and attack outside of those areas. They don't even attack. Those are the groups they support because of their opposition to Israel, support for the Palestinians. They don't attack. There's no terrorist attacks in Germany and whatever by these groups. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of terrorist attacks are done by Sunni groups like HTS and ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra and all those organizations, okay? Russia worked with Iran in Iraq and Syria. I mean, in Syria, but from what I understand, even worked with us in Syria to go after ISIS during the last Trump administration. Okay, because they are a threat to them. And then you have minorities. There's a whole lot of thing going in here. But this is a smart move by Trump. He didn't want to get bamboozled like the missile strikes last time in his first term when he launched on Syria, because he was surrounded completely by a bunch of neocons scum. Here he now has Tulsi, who has been great on this issue, was 100% correct arguing with that idiot senator from Arizona on the Syria issue. Was proved within a month of that hearing. He was proved correct when they started killing those people. And then you also have Tulsi there, Witkoff, who he trusts. Hegseth started to question things on Ukraine and starts to get it more towards the end of his career on Fox. But, all right, so there are more trusting people around, okay? And let Marco play around, the neocon Marco play around with the little European people, sip some wine and eat some cheese and see what happens. And they're going to try to question and corner Witkoff to get him on board to tell them what they want him to tell Trump. And hopefully he stands firm, is honest, okay, and has conversations with Colonel McGregor and Tulsi Gabbard and other people. Reach up the phone. Go talk to Fico in Slovakia, Orban in Hungary, all right? They'll tell you the truth, all right? So that's my video for this Holy Thursday. So we have a lot to follow. That's why I want to do this here on Holy Thursday and get this done. So I'm going to keep an eye on the meeting between Russia and Iran and see what happens out of there. She's got this whole pressure with the strikes and everything going on in Iran. So, and then at the same time, you got this meeting with the European people. So we're going to, all through the weekend going on, everybody's going to be, watching golf and enjoying Easter Sunday. So I'm going to follow everything with that. With the Canadian elections coming up, there was a debate in French. I just got some clippets of it, whatever. We'll see what the polling comes out after that debate. Romanian election, so another poll, looks like the Conservatives is over 30%. Another poll, one has it only a 2-point race, so that's coming up in early May in a few weeks too. So we'll be following that as well. The battlefield in Ukraine as well, any major developments there. So I'll be updating this weekend on my X, which is @PatriotPlanner1, and on my Getter @PatriotPlanner. And if you like this video, and I hope you did, please follow, like, and share. And I want everybody to have a wonderful Easter. All right. Thank you very much, and until next week.